the piper's mournful sound, and feel the earth beneath me pound. The wind it whispers tales of old, of lovers bold and hearts of gold, in moonlit fields where shadows glide. The wildest dreams in me reside. Oh, Persepolis, your walls still cry. The stars above, they watch and sigh. Lovers dance beneath the sky, where silken shadows intertwine. Whispers float like wine so sweet, a heart that beats in ancient streets. The scent of roses fills the night, as fire and soul take flight. Through green and gold the rivers run, the morning light it kisses the sun. But somewhere far beyond the sea, your voice still calls, it's haunting me. In Irish winds and Persian sands, I feel your touch, the warmth of hands. Between the stars, between the sea, a love that's bound eternally. From Cork to Persia, through time we roam, two hearts entwined, one path, one home. The fiddle sings, the setter weeps, where love awakens, never sleeps. The fire burns, the winds may blow, but through it all we will not go. In every step, in every rhyme, you're with me still, across all time. Persepolis, your walls still cry. The stars above, they watch and sigh. A lover stands beneath the sky, where silken shadows intertwine. Whispers flow like wine so sweet, a heart that beats in ancient streets. The scent of roses fills the night, as fire and soul take flight. So here we stand where winds may blow, in Cork's green hills, oh, where the rivers flow. The night is young, the music's loud, we spin and sway beneath the cloud. to talk. I hear the piper's mournful sound and feel the earth beneath me pound. The wind it whispers tales of old, of lovers bold and hearts of gold, in moonlit fields where shadows glide. The wildest dreams in me reside. Oh, Persepolis, your walls still cry. The stars above, they watch and sigh. Oh, lovers dance beneath the sky, where silken shadows intertwine. Whispers float like wine so sweet, a heart that beats in ancient streets. The scent of roses fills the night, as fire and soul take flight. Through green and gold the rivers run, the morning light it kisses the sun. But somewhere far beyond the sea, your voice still calls, it's haunting me. In Irish winds and Persian sands, I feel your touch, the warmth of hands. Between the stars, between the sea, a love that's bound eternally. From Coke to Persia, through time we roam, two hearts entwined, one path, one home. The fiddle sings, the setter weeps, where love awakens, never sleeps. The fire burns, the winds may blow, but through it all we will not go. In every step, in every rhyme, you're with me still, across all time. Persepolis, your walls still cry. The stars above, they watch and sigh. A lover stands beneath the sky, where silken shadows intertwine. Whispers flow like wine so sweet, a heart that beats in ancient streets. The scent of roses fills the night, as fire and soul take flight. So here we stand where winds may blow, in corkscreen hills, oh, where the rivers flow. The night is young, the music's loud, we spin and sway beneath the clouds.
Hello and welcome back to Dante's Inferno, and it looks like we're missing our bearded friend this week for some reason. Didn't message us, punts. But we are going to be getting started on Canto 26 this week, which we really should be waiting for our friend Eucharist and Rich, but if they show up, they show up. If not, oh well. They had their shot. I even waited an hour for them, which is why you got an hour starting soon screen, people. I'm sorry.
Was Eucharist supposed to be joining us today?
Not specifically. He said he'd make it if he could. It's one of those things.
Yeah, okay.
And I didn't hear back from him, so I wasn't super hopeful, which is why I'm only mentioning it now. But this week we get a slight difference. Now I do have to go back and mention something from last week. Ciardi is wrong. He mentions it in 3 different places in his book that Canto 25 is the first particular mention of a mythological beast that's not also in early Christendom. He's just fucking wrong. Like that's we found that out when we went back and looked for the Minotaur and all that. He says it in 3 different parts of his commentary though. So I'm wondering if he wrote his commentary before he did his research and just never changed it, because it's literally the same exact blurb in 3 different spots. And it kind of makes me ashamed that Ciardi published his book before we had computers to be able to control H, control F shit, because I bet the editor would have caught that fucking padding.
Yep.
Wait, why did you use this paragraph 3 times on 3 different pages? But what he was right about, inadvertently, even though he doesn't mention it, because I went and did further research, it is the first time that a particular anthropomorphic animal was done. The centaur is an anthropomorphization of the horse. It is, a lot of people think it's from Morning Mist and seeing people riding through the mist and things like that, and basically power of suggestion leading people to believe it was a single creature rather than a rider on the horse, and you just couldn't see the horse's head due to mist, blah, 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 blah. But the anthropomorphization is because we have actually, quote unquote, had archaeologists try to fake centaurs, because apparently, and I didn't know this, there's a particular bone called our ischium, which is part of our pelvis, that lines up with part of the shoulders of a horse, so you can actually kind of make it look right. And they actually fooled some people in the Royal Academy of Science for about a month. That we had actually just, yeah. Very long time ago. So I mean, it's not like they were combating people who use CTs and MRIs on their remains. But at the same time, it is an interesting thing that this was actually attempted on the Royal Academy of Science as a hoax, much like Piltdown Man was, and it was caught even quicker.
Nice.
So. Yeah, it lasted like 6.5 weeks in the 1800s ANCOM.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, the fact that it was
20 or something like that, which means all we had was the
6
telegraph.
weeks. I mean, barely even that. Like, I'm guessing most scientific communication would still have been by postal mail.
Yeah, but Royal Academy. Remember, they would have had top of the line fucking everything. That's why I said, at most, they had telegraph. And 6.5 weeks is all it lasted. But that's why Ciardi is wrong, because if you look at where he talks about it the 3rd time, he brings in this point from the Royal Academy, that at one particular time an anatomist believed that he had discovered centaurs, and that this may have been the actual source of the anthropomorphized myth, not realizing that Ciardi's not a mythicist of any kind, and he doesn't realize that centaurs are almost 1,000 years older than Christianity, as far as the myth.
So, what time period would you call that with the centaur bone and whatnot? They're like the bone.
Oh, when we tried
6
this,
weeks.
early 1800s, so I think that's called end of the Edwardian, I think. I'd have to look up the exact date to be sure.
So we would call that Edwardian pea hacking.
Yeah, pretty much.
I like it.
I mean, that's
like
pretty. Well, no, that's pretty much what they did at the Royal Academy of Science was p hacking. That was pretty much all they did. And for those of you in the audience who are not scientifically minded, that's padding your bill, your resume, so to speak. And you'll also hear this referred to as H-index hacking or H-index padding. This is essentially making yourself look way more important than you are by creating bullshit that you hope nobody looks at. For a prime example, that for any of you in the audience who are at Rice University, I'm sorry, your professor, Dr. James Tour, is famous for this. He is listed as one of the most prolific scientific authors in the last 100 years because of this very H-index and p-hacking that we're discussing, by bullying his way onto papers where he may have done something as simple as edit a single word in a single sentence. That actually happened. He actually required Rice University's administration to go after a different university's administration for not including his name on a paper because he changed one word. So there's a prime example, and if you're at Rice University, you can go ask him about it. But yes, that is essentially what they did. So Ciardi's misunderstanding, where he brings this up, basically comes from him not realizing that this was not ever a real finding, because for a Royal Academy finding to be secured, it has to be uncontested for over a year. This is why evolution, for example, took so long to be accepted by the Royal Academy of Science. Not because they did not actually understand it or think that Darwin and later Mendel and others were right. It was because it could not meet the year challenge for so long. So many people challenged it so often in the early days. Because let's be honest, it was revolutionary. Yeah, it's just one of those things. And I would have never found this out if Ciardi had not fucked that up. Because I didn't know about this skeleton that somebody tried to pass off. Just interesting little fun bit of history that connects to last week. Okay, and now in this week, we're getting into a slightly different connotation. There's a lot of implication in this one, even though the direct references are not there. There are several mythicists who don't care anything about the story, who just are kind of looking at the symbolism as far as like what he could be implying here. And they believe that he is very, as far as his education level would have been able to do, very aptly describing what we would now call a succubus in this region. Which doesn't make sense because this is the region of fraud and deception and all that. But it is interesting that he's doing this here instead of in the circle for lust. And I did find that interesting because I found it during the research for checking on why Ciardi was so horribly and laughably wrong in what he put. That made me look like an idiot last week. Fuck you, Ciardi. I know you're dead, but fuck you. That being said, we will get to the reading. Now, this is a shorter canto. And I almost wish Rich was here for one section, because I guarantee you he couldn't get through it without laughing on one particular line. But we will get to the reading because we are starting late because we're trying to give our bearded buddy time to get here. Rejoice, O Florence, since thou art so great, that over sea and land thou beatest thy wings, and throughout hell thy name is spread abroad. Among the thieves 5 citizens of thine, like these I found whence shame come unto me. And though thereby to no great honor risest. I didn't want to say resist. My fucking brain this morning. But if when morn is near our dreams are true, feel shalt thou in thy in a little time from now. God, I want to say that. My brain today, it's just wanting to add shit. What Prato in none other craves for thee. And it now it were too not too soon. Would that it were, seeing it needs must be. For 'twill aggrieve me more the more I age. We went our way and up along the stairs the bournes had made us to descend before, remounted by my conductor, and drew me. And following the solitary path among the rocks and ridges of the crag, the foot without the hand speed not at all. Okay, so this is an extremely clunky, I mean, beyond my misreadings, it's an extremely clunky bit of language. Everything I just read is telling you that they had to walk very carefully by grabbing shit and making sure that their footing was secure. You know, Dante using 200 words when 3 would do. But and part of the reason it's clunky is because we use Longfellow. And I don't apologize for that. I'm doing that for you guys in the audience, since this is more than likely what your university is using. But it is also like if Ancom pulls up the Italian, he'll see it's even clunky there. Like there is just certain syllable connective tissue that is very hard to say. Like your tongue like naturally does not want to go from this sound to that sound at several places, so it becomes very cumbersome to perform. And as we have pointed out,
it's a bit like Dante was intentionally writing a tongue twister here.
Yeah, it's I can't say it intentionally, but if not intentionally, he fucking pulled it off on accident really fucking well. And
if not intentionally, Longfellow did it for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, part of it's, you know, all the shit going on in the world in my brain at the moment, but part of it is also, this is, your tongue does not want to go from long vowel sounds to sharp consonant sounds quickly and easily unless they are built within your phonemes. For information, since you're watching this in English and we don't produce it in any other language, guess what? That's only about 4 different hard consonant sounds that will connect with the vowels correctly in our whole fucking language. Yeah, go ahead and think about it. I'll let you try and come up in the comments with somewhere where I'm wrong, but yeah, that's 4 combinations and different accent length combinations on the length of the vowel. That's it. We do this constantly in the way that we speak. In Italian, especially 14th century Italian, I'm finding, they had so recently diverged from the ecclesiastical Latin that this is even more true. Because now you're talking a language with like first, second, and third declinations. You're talking about literal pronunciation of a word changing the definition at times. Not letters of the word, not context of the word, pronunciation of the word changing the definition. This is very, very odd to do. It is, as Ancom said, almost like intentionally writing a tongue twister. The closest that I would put this to would Peter picked a pack of pickled peppers. This is that kind where your tongue just does not want to revert back and forth quickly in the way that the wording makes you. And this does the same thing.
Oh, come on. At least do the real, like one of the most difficult ones for English speakers.
I didn't want to go for the most difficult. I wanted to go for the one that matched the Italian. But yes, there are many that are worse than Peter packed of pickled peppers.
Yeah, the sixth sheep sick.
Yeah,
that one's pretty hard to do.
Yeah, and I'm not going to try it and embarrass myself. I'm good.
I would love, now I'm curious. What are some difficult Japanese tongue twisters? Because y'all got way different tongue placements.
what is it? Sumomo momomo no ichi. That's one of them. Sumomo momomo no ichi.
Ugh.
Yeah.
See, I could probably mimic that because it just sounds like sounds. It doesn't sound like a word to me. I could probably mimic it just because of that. Other than that,
Well, yeah. It's like the nectarine, the peach in the peach's house.
fair enough. Yeah, but it just goes to show you, it's a tongue twister to you guys. To me, that just sounds like speaking in tongues. I can fake that. Okay, so, and as I said here, this is them very, very wordily saying, I had to walk by hand and foot. It was so uneven and so treacherous that I dared not leave more than one point of contact at a time. That is essentially what this is saying. For any of you who have done any kind of like heavy hiking, it's basically you having to go around a ledge where you always have to keep 3 points of contact with the wall.
Yeah.
It's dangerous only because of what's
I've done
underneath
it.
them. Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it ever to anyone.
Yeah, you're definitely going to be in the pucker factor zone.
Well, either that or the code brown zone.
Yeah, I mean, just wear your brown pants that day. You'll be all right. But see, this is the reason I stop here and I bring up that this is extremely wordy. This is different than the way that he does this before. He does not try to make the reading difficult to imply the difficulty of the transition. So, at least in my opinion, and there's a couple of scholars who similarly came to roughly the same conclusion, this is done intentionally to make the reader feel precarious because they feel like they may have misread what they're seeing, and to give a sense of unease to the reader. And I can kind of get that. I just don't know how much that would have affected 14th century Italian speakers, considering 85% of them were illiterate. It is literally just spoken
if
word
this
to
is
them.
if this is meant to be spoken, and the person speaking it is doing it in a way where the people listening to it can hear how difficult it is to say. It could be.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't know how that would affect 14th century Italians. I just don't. I don't know their psychology, their like that part of it I don't understand, but at least it feels that way to me, and other scholars seem to feel the same. That's it very well could be. And you and I know this. Psychology changes dramatically, especially between cultures. As much as people like to say humans are simple, we're really not. We're simple in the fact that we're fucking meat computers. We're not simple when you combine all the other variables we deal with.
No, most of us are meat computers.
Fair. But more my point is, I will never, and more than likely none of us will ever truly be able to get into the psyche of these 14th century Italians well enough to truly understand how this would affect a performance level outside of a review of somebody reading this. And the only reviews of people performing this are fucking rich, like fucking very famous people. Apparently reviews of performances were not really a thing in the 1300s. There was no Yelp back then in any way.
Well, I mean, like, I'm like trying to think about this, okay? So, it's one thing, and this was a thing that was actually done back in the day, is that when you would get like performing troupe, they would have specific nights where people paid more to be there, so they would do things better on particular nights than other nights.
Yeah,
just because of like
I
who
can
was
see that
paying
totally.
and who was in the audience.
Well, no, I could totally see that too. But my point is like, at least from the reviews that I was able to find, First of all, the first one comes from 1389, so literally 70 years, 79 years after fucking Dante's death. Um,
Yeah.
the next one's 1545,
Mm-hmm.
and it's another rich, fairly well educated, affluent performer performing it for a court.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know how this affect normal 14th century Italians. And I don't really know how it affected people directly around the first time this would have been telling, back when Dante was basically just recently put in the ground. Um, it just, therefore, I don't want to say it as as a foregone conclusion or a definite conclusion, because as much as we can be certain about a lot of things physical, it's insanely fucking hard to understand the psychology and sociology of people who are long dead and come from a time period before we did any kind of effective record keeping or questionnaires or, journaling or anything that could be used to help us. So like just keep that in mind when you're thinking about this. He may have very well been trying to make you feel uneasy and like an idiot child as you read this section, to therefore give it a added level of gravitas. This is by the way, this is a standard trope. This has literally been done by playwrights since BCE times. We are talking, we can follow Greek playwrights from 3000 BC who did this shit. Um, so there's a lot that goes into this, but Despy, if you would like to pick up, I think you'll enjoy this little bit, mainly because it's an interesting part of the story.
Where am I going to?
45.
So
Yeah, let me get you
I can't
back.
really see the numbers all that well.
Yeah, I know. I'll have to move you down.
Okay. Is this where I'm
Yep.
at right here? Okay. Then sorrowed I sorrow now again, when direct in my mind to what I saw, and more my genius curb than I am wont. uh, that it may run not unless virtue guide it, so that if some good star or better thing have given me good, I may myself not grudge it. As many as the hind who on the hill rest at the time when he who lights the world his countenance keeps least concealed from us. While as the fly gives place unto the gnat, seeth the glowworms down along the valley, perchance there where he ploughs and makes his vintage, with flames as manifold resplendent, all was the eighth Bulgia, as I grew aware as soon as I where the depth appeared, and such as he who with the bears avenged him, beheld Elijah's chariot at departing. What time the steed to heaven erect uprose, for with his eye he could not follow it, so as to see aught else than flame alone, even as the little cloud ascending upward. Thus each along the gorge of the entrenchment was moving, for not one reveals the theft, and every flame a sinner steals away. I stood upon the bridge uprisen to see, so that if I had seized not on a rock, down had I fallen without being pushed.
Okay, so for those of you who are not Christian, yeah, this is the story of Elijah. I won't go too deep into it because the way it's described here is fairly well done for poetical form, where you can save yourself a lot of reading in the Bible. But when it comes right down to it, is Elijah being carried by the chariot of fire. It is it's a very fun biblical story if you look at it from the theatrical aspect. If you actually read the story, I'm sorry for the nightmares. Um, but the reason that it's interesting is the description. It essentially turns every denizen of this particular area of hell into Goku on a nimbus of pain. They're literally just going up and down the sides of the wall on little fucking clouds of pain and fire. So the best way to describe this to you people, if you ever played Ice Climbers, the exact opposite of that. And us old people got it because we've played that game. If you haven't played Ice Climbers, you'll play it and you'll get it.
Well, I mean, Ice Climbers are in Smash Brothers, so
Doesn't mean
I think
they
people
played
get
the
the
Ice
general
Climbers
gist.
game. But Ice Climbers the game and Ice Climbers and fucking Smash Brothers are two totally different animals. In the original game, let's just put it this way: those hammers were much less effective than in Smash Brothers. I've whooped some people's asses with those dual hammers in Smash Brothers. In the original Ice Climbers game, if you click that button even a blink too early or too late, good night. But yes, now that we're in the eighth Bolgia, this is interesting. It is very much, or if you're looking for a visual that's less pain-inducing, in the dark, watching an equalizer board going as the sound is going. You're just watching the lights go up and down the wall. Just ding, 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 ding. The only difference is every light is a burning person. You know, kind of like if you go to a fucking, oh god, I forget the damn artist's name. There was a fucking rock band a few years ago that basically set a stadium on fire. And a person. I just forget who it is now.
Intentionally?
No. No, it was not intentional. It was very much not intentional. It was more like a pyrotechnic that was meant to be there, was overcooked to give a greater spectacle, not realizing that overcooking a pyrotechnic also makes flames go further. And yeah, you know, add a few extra grains of gunpowder and shit goes a lot more different.
Yeah. Well, so what you're saying is Dave had one job.
Yeah, and he pulled a Carl instead of a Dave. Yeah, that's very accurate and insane. I'll remember the band probably near the end of this fucking stream, but yeah, guy got burned, not horribly, but yeah, he got his arm set on fire when the pyrotechnic blew out a god of flame that was, instead of 10 feet long, was 40 feet long. Don't overcook pyrotechnics. It's, if you don't know stoichiometrics, don't fuck with explosives. If you have never heard the word stoichiometrics before, don't fuck with explosives. And for those of you who wonder why I know what that is, don't. But the reason that this is interesting is he calls it, not one reveals the theft. I don't actually understand why the word theft is here, and it's in the Italian as well. I don't understand why the word theft is here. It seems out of context, almost like he used it to fit his tercerima, but it wasn't an accurate fit, or I am just misunderstanding 14th century Italian. And this has a secondary implication that is lost to me in time as an English speaker. Because this isn't about theft. This isn't that circle. So this is a action motion of their, or a motion action as opposed to a past action that granted them their denizenship here. Therefore, this is something that they're currently doing. I don't understand it, because if they're stealing the light, essentially that means all of them are fleeing like cockroaches when the lights come on. But then that contradicts back and forth the ascending upward and all the stuff that's going, like, it just doesn't seem to match. And it could be him trying to put us into that sense of unease, the unreal, the surreal even, but the word seems out of place. And
the postmodern, if you would.
Jesus fucking Christ. Could you imagine if we tried stretching postmodernism back to fucking Dante? You'd have people shitting kittens as they try to fucking learn Middle English. Oh, it made my head hurt almost as much as this current government. Oh.
I mean, I wouldn't call Longfellow Middle English, early modern.
No, but that's not my point. This is early modern. No. But if we were to push it back to Dante and to postmodernism, Middle English was still used in the 14th century.
Oh, in the 14th century, yeah, but why are we talking about English when this was
because if this is postmodern, therefore this is us then trying to extrapolate it into English. We would have to extrapolate it through the language as it juxtaposes at the time. And that's my point. Like, if we push it back that far, could you imagine trying to read this like fucking Beowulf?
Oh, God.
Like, Jesus. Like, Dante's complicated enough. You'd have a rash of fucking self-deletions of university students if hey, we're going to read Dante today in Middle English, and you're going to have to read it aloud. It would be like the movie Lemmings. It just, splat, splat. And for those of you who've never seen that web movie, yeah. But you get my point. It's just like, no. Like, postmodernism needs to start where it starts, or else all of history gets weird. We need to not do that.
We had a professor for theater history. He came in the first day, and he handed out a pamphlet, but he put a book on the front desk. If I remember correctly, it was Midsummer, but it was written in Middle English. And he basically had said, if you can get up here and read this, like, in character, and understand everything that's going on with what you're reading, you can pass my class, and you don't have to do any work. And he said, I'll bring it to class with me every day.
I have literally played Puck in that play. Unless you were a Middle English scholar, you're done, son. Like, oh my God. Like, the only character, literally the only character in that entire play I could see anybody pulling off in uni outside of a fucking linguist student is going to be Nick Bottom.
Yeah.
That's the only character in the one that has lines that are simple enough.
Yeah, well, no, what I'm saying is he's like saying that if you can do the characters, you understand this and whatnot, then you don't need to pay attention in my class.
No, I get it, but I'm sitting there, I'm now doing the assignment in my head, and I'm going, so unless somebody already knew the play, therefore knew the simpleness of the lines well enough to be able to source out which one of the characters to try this of, and knows Middle English well enough, like, literally, let's just say you know the basics of Middle English enough to where you could read it even if you can barely fucking understand it. Nick Bottom and Lysander are literally the only two characters in that play you will understand a fucking single line of.
Mm-hmm.
That just made my head hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Okay, that tangent aside for the students in the audience, yeah, don't do this. We are nerds of a different caliber, and that's not saying that you're less than. That's saying that we had to be tortured more in school. Don't follow our example. Like, if your teacher doesn't expect you to learn Middle English, don't. If you aren't going to become a linguist of English and need to learn Old and Middle English, don't. Save yourself the headache. Because, like, honestly, unless you're doing stuff like we're doing here, where you're going more than a plain text reading of whatever script that or manuscript that you're examining, it is never going to be necessary. I can literally do this entire series on Beowulf like I'm doing for Dante's Inferno, read the whole motherfucker in Middle English, and never have to do what we're describing here. Sorry. Your professor was a sadist.
Yep.
And if you have a professor like that, good luck.
The funny thing actually happened. I was working security at the time. This is the same professor and whatnot. And he always lambasted against authority, lambasted against the government, lambasted against pretty much anything where rules were involved except for his class. And anyway, I had ended up giving somebody a parking ticket that, because I was working security at the time, I was working with bike police. And someone had literally parked their bike on a handicap rail directly in front of a handicap entrance, and the bike was literally covering the button for the door. And I gave wrote the ticket and whatnot. Well, the person decided to contest the ticket, which means I had to go to court. And this teacher was like, you better be, in the hospital dying in order to get like permission to leave my class. There's no reason for you to leave I told him that I had a ticket. He's like, what did you do? Because I had to go to court because of a ticket. He's like, no, I wrote the ticket. What did you do? And I explained it to him, and after I explained exactly why I had to go to court for this ticket and whatnot, and he's like, all right, fine, you get a pass, but none of the rest of you.
Good Lord. Yeah.
That professor just sounds delightful.
Oh, that professor was really good at his job. You just did not. He was really good at his job. The way that he explained everything, the way that he did his class was great. He was just a hard ass.
Yeah, but
Sure.
That's the point. You could be a effective teacher that actually educates your students and still be a cunt. He sounds like one of those.
Yeah. No. This guy, it was a complete asshole. Like somebody I would never, ever, ever spend 5 minutes with outside. Like if that professor invited me out for drinks, I would decline. Let's just put it that way. But they were effective.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't, because he sounds like the kind of guy that would have fucking held that against you. But other than that, I agree.
Yeah.
The reason that we're kind of like going off on tangents like this in this particular one is because, to be completely honest with you, what we are talking about within the particular poem here is fairly mundane. There's not a whole lot of commentary. We're about to get to a little bit when Ancom gets to reading his section, but this is the first time that we actually have to do historical reference. The rest of this has been us interpreting things that were not necessarily In the translator's commentary, or in particular commentaries on this portion of the poem, um, there's not a lot to add outside of the visuals that are a little hard to understand because of the clunky wording. And therefore, we're in the process of coming up with our analogies. We're being inspired onto tangents because we're fucking ADD. So that if you feel a little lost as to why we're tangenting so much, yeah, Dante wrote a very clunky portion of the poem that says a whole lot of fuck all, except for this was hard. Going down these stairs was hard. And there was bright burning people on our walls.
Yep.
Like, I don't know how else to help you with this. Like, Lucifer on fucking TV did a better example of hell than this. This is like, if I had
and I actually quite enjoyed Lucifer's portrayal of hell.
Oh yeah. But my point is like this is like cartoon Lord of the Rings version of hell. It's just, it'd be very visually appealing, but that's because this was written for people who the idea of visual moving medium was somebody acting. They would never have, even in a million years, had the concept of a moving picture. So, like, to us, this is very old hat. We've seen these kind of images 1,000 times in our youth and in adulthood, watching movies and seeing, like, this would probably have been very shocking or very, like, profound to somebody in the 1400s who had never seen any shit like this before. This is very normal to anybody post 1928. Like, we have literally been showing burning people going up and down ladders since silent film. Saying.
All right.
Go quiet.
I guess I will proceed with my reading then.
Yeah, and it looks like...
Sure.
If you're reading from the spreadsheet, it looks like you're going to get to go to the nice number of 69.
Nice. All right. And the leader who beheld me so attent exclaimed, "Within the fires the spirits are, each swathes himself with that wherewith he burnt." "My master," I replied, "by hearing thee I am more sure, but I surmised already it might be so, and already wished to ask thee, who is within that fire, which comes so cleft at top, it seems uprising from the pyre, where was Eteocles with his brother placed?" He answered me, "Within there are tormented Ulysses and Diomed, and thus together they unto vengeance run as unto wrath." And, interesting that he... Okay, sorry, I'll go back to that. "And there within their flame do they lament the the ambush of the horse, which made the door whence issued forth the Romans' gentle seed. Therein is wept the craft, for which being dead, Deidamia still deplores Achilles, and pain for the Palladium there is born. If they within those sparks possess the power to speak," I said, "thee, master, much I pray and repray that the prayer be worth 1,000, that thou make no denial of awaiting until the horned flame shall hither come. Thou seest what desire I lean towards it." And he to me,
Too hard.
"Worthy is thy entreat." Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Sorry,
that's line 70.
Yeah, no, I realized as I said it. So interesting that they're looking at the pit in which Ulysses, otherwise known as Odysseus, and Diomed, otherwise known as Diomedes, which if you're familiar at all with the Odyssey or the Iliad, you will recognize those names.
Well, we'll start with where they started. Eteocles. This is the king of Thebes and the son of Oedipus. For those of you who don't, yeah. It's why I think Ulysses and Diomedes are here is because they're very similar to Eteocles. Uh, Eteocles. It is a
I would say Ediocles, but
I would too, except for that he's from Thebes, and therefore the O would be an O. But
mm,
that being said, the reason that I bring this up is because most people, when we talk about this, you are used to not hearing about this particular person. They do not they don't usually go into the sons of Oedipus when you start discussing Oedipus. And he okay, so I forget who, but he is the son of Oedipus and either Jocasta and I can never remember how to say her name. I always call her Genia. But Eurygeania. We don't know who the mother is specifically, but the reason behind that is because of the fact that we focus on Oedipus for various reasons. um, we don't necessarily need to get into why it's so heavily focused on in modern time, but needless to say, if he had Eteocles with Jocasta, this is a rather unique union because Jocasta is his mother, and that's why this is very interesting, because in the story of Oedipus there is a certain layer of deception as to who mothered his son, specifically because of this particular idiosyncrasy of him killing his own father to marry his mother. Um, Something to look into when you're not getting there. But Ulysses and Diomedes in this circle are also there because of their violent connection as to why their love would be here. It makes sense when you understand that we're in the eighth Bolgia. And the reason I commented on so heavily is because Ancom seemed to be a little not nonplussed but surprised that Ulysses and Diomedes were here. This is why, is the
it's
connection
more.
of the violence and the deception.
It was more that I wasn't expecting them to be to come up in this poem at all. It's not so much where they were found; it's that they were found that I was surprised.
Why did that surprise you?
Honestly, I just didn't expect them because
Jason was in
this
a
is
previous
largely a
circle.
treatise on Italian politics in the 14th century. I wasn't expecting two figures from the Iliad / Odyssey to pop up.
Well, Jason of Jason and the Argonauts is in a previous circle.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, like he's not opposed to putting people from the Greek myths into hell, as long as it fits his necessarily etymological narrative. Um, oh, and just so that you can see why I say it the way I do. Um, damn it. Copy from my notes. I'll open up side chat.
By the way, I looked up the name you were struggling with. Oregania would be.
Yeah, I can never remember how to pronounce it. But that is technically, if you were to translate it specifically from like character to character from Greek to English, that would be how you spell his name.
So we have Et Ewok lose. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, but like if we were to actually go
I'm
letter
glad
by
I
letter
solved that problem.
but if we go letter by letter translation of his name into English, this is how it would technically be translated, and or transliterated rather, I should say. And with that, you get the phonetics of the regional pronunciation of Theban Greek.
I would like to
Yeah,
point out
so-
that I would prefer Ewok be put in there at some point.
I know, but that's
The,
because we love little furry little fucking murder bears.
The IPA pronunciation on the Wikipedia gives Itiocles.
Yes, because if you're going to go by a website that is going to standardize it to American English, like they do.
No. This is giving the IPA, not necessarily.
Yes,
Usually this is showing like the
but these books are that they're going to be basing off of are going to be based off of not American English, UK English, and it is going to be predominantly based within the English pronunciation of the way they did Greek back then. And why do we pronounce Hercules?
Hercules?
Because the fucking Romans.
And the British, but yes. But it's the same kind of thing where it is we have standardized certain things into English that in the ancient times would have had much more regional dialectation, and as our linguist here can tell you, a dialect can form in as little as 4 years in a highly populated area, as little as 6 months in an isolated one.
Fair enough.
And Thebes was a trading port, a highly isolated region. It is very hard to get to Thebes. Thebes was not how you say traveler friendly. You could look it up on the map and see why I mean that. Make sure you look up the ocean topo map and you'll see why. But yeah, it basically Thebes was highly isolated outside of key traders who knew how to sail the dangerous waters around it. But just so, and that's why I will try to, if I know it, I will try to pronounce things as best I can within their original connotation. Hence why I say Julius Caesar instead of Julius Caesar most of the time, or I say Cicero instead of Cicero, etc.
And I will purposely try to mispronounce them just because I find it funny.
Yes, and because you know it'll make me want to fucking pull what little my hair I have left out.
So you were mentioning the sea, except Thebes is part of mainland Greece.
It is, but notice their closest port. Remember, transport
Athens.
would have been blocked by mountains and seaways. They'd have to come through Athens. Athens, their only clear port to get to them. Everything else, you have to go through dangerous foothills that are filled with crags. You have to basically travel your horse through a region that can kill your fucking horse. Or break its leg, anyways.
I'm just telling you right now. Pretty much any region you bring your horse into will probably kill your fucking horse.
Well, okay, that's true. That's why I corrected myself with break its leg. For those of you who don't know Greek shoreline, and why would you? Depending on where you are in the islands of Greece, some of their shoreline is very sandy, very pristine, etc. Other parts look like it's made out of fucking broken glass. With the way the rocks stick out of the water and out of the beach sand. Basically, if you land at either of the other two major ports in this time period outside of Athens, you have to travel through safe waters, which is fine, but then over dangerous land. You'd have to travel through dangerous waters to get to Athens to travel through that area of the Aegean. But once you get to Athens, you get to the middle of Greece fairly simply because of a particular valley floor that runs along that area. So you get it's actually a glacial valley, which means it's very rounded, very flat. not a lot of features that will cause danger to your livestock, or in this case your mount. It's one of the reasons why Athens was so successful, is their geographic region.
I'm just saying, like, someone who's ridden horse for years. You can be on flat ground with no problems, and your horse can trip.
It can, but that's far less likely than if you're walking over, let's say, University of Minnesota was there. Did you ever go up to the state park up by the Wisconsin-Minnesota border, just north of you? I forget the name of it now. But that real rocky trail that everybody likes to go mountain biking on. Imagine taking your
Is that
fucking...
the one? Is that in Eau Claire?
I think so. I just remember that mountain bikers like to go there because of the crazy runs that you can get on it. Imagine taking your fucking horses on that rocky ass trail.
Yeah.
No, fuck that. I'll take walking through the desert or on flat ground and let them trip over their own feet over trying to do that shit. And that's how... I've never been to this particular area of Greece, but I've seen lots of pictures of it. It's kind of how I vision it. It's a lot of flat, a lot of little, like, ponds, lakes, and creeks, and a lot of fucking rocks. A lot of sharp fucking rocks. And you can, and as Ancom's looking around, he'll see what I'm talking about now. Like, if you follow the seafloor, you have to go into Athens, or you have to come across land. And to get into Thebes across land is not fun unless you're coming from Athens.
I mean, unless I'm having some trouble finding seafloor diagrams for the area. Give me a second.
Oceanographic EU. Oh god, I forget the acronym. The European Union Oceanographic Organization or Association or something like that. It's basically their version of NOAA.
Yeah.
Because
I'm looking at
how they...
like the South. I'm looking at the South Ubekian Gulf, and I'm like, if the towns of Dilesi or Chalkis were, or like if those were ports at the time, those would have been way easier to get to Thebes from than Athens.
Ports, yes. Major ports that are trading hubs, no. In those time periods that you're talking about, those villages would have existed, and you probably would have had boats come into them. But you went to the main port because that's where the money was.
Fair, but like if Thebes was a trading center, then you'd think a closer port would have been. Anyways, and
this is me going on topo maps and reading old fucking Greek texts as to why I come to this conclusion. Because the other thing is old maps. You'll notice that some of these towns don't exist, or if they do exist, they're listed as what we would now call hamlets, aka less than 150 people.
Fair enough.
And I don't know about you, if I have my choice of going to Athens, which at this time period probably had about 30,000 people, or a hamlet, I don't care how good that fucking port is. I'm not going to the hamlet. They don't have enough money to clear my boat. I could literally wipe out the entire savings of that town and still have half of my cargo hold full. And that's on a trireme. This isn't even a big cargo hold.
Yeah.
Actually, wait. No, this time period they wouldn't have had triremes yet. So, no, even smaller. These are mainly coastal vessels. Like, the ones that went out into the Mediterranean mainly died at this time period because of how small the boats were. Like, the ones that made it across to Africa were the lucky ones. Like, it was something like... I'd have to look up the exact figure, but I want to say it was something like, for every 2 that made it to shore, 3 sank.
Yeah, I could imagine that.
And for those of you who have never been to the Med is mainly an extremely calm sea. When the Mediterranean decides to get angry, pretty much anything short of an ocean-going vessel is going to be turned into kindling. Because the bottom of the Mediterranean, first of all, used to be dry. And it has very interesting topographical regions within it. And when currents start moving in it, you can get rogue waves in the heights of like 50 and 60 feet, which usually you only see out in deep open ocean.
There's a reason people thought that Poseidon was mostly chill until he got really fucking pissed off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I've never been on a boat in a storm, but I've seen like videos of boats on a storm in the Mediterranean. It's fucking scary, man. Like you're seeing like, if you ever seen those big like ocean tankers on the horizon, if you live near the coast, the ones that are the, like big container things, ships like that going up and down hundreds of feet because of the water going around them. These ships weigh several 100,000 pounds, and they are being tossed around like bath toys. It's wild shit. Let's move this up. Sorry. So the other thing that we need to talk about here, this is the mention of Achilles. This is actually, as far as I remember, not the actual resting place of Achilles. I think he was a couple circles back, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm wondering why Diademia is here instead of there. Is it because she hates him? If so, that doesn't seem like the appropriate circle shift for her. Like, it just seems weird, and I don't understand the juxtaposition, and maybe I'm forgetting something to her story as to why she would be lower in hell than her lover, or former lover.
I guess it depends on.
Yeah, I just don't know.
Why?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because it was. Let's see here. Well, yeah, she marries Achilles, but Achilles, if I'm not unless I'm very much mistaken, dies in the Trojan War.
He does.
Yeah. So that means she wouldn't necessarily be with him because she was still back in Skyros.
Well, yeah, but she still deplores Achilles. I know why she ended up hating Achilles. He left.
Yeah.
But why would that lower her circle in hell is the part I'm not getting. Maybe I'm forgetting something to her story that I just... Maybe... that's what I'm trying to say. And when I reread the bits of the Iliad about her, I didn't really get any more. So, like, I'm still not understanding why she's lower in hell. That's why I was kind of hoping that Eucharist and Rich would be here. Especially Rich, because he fucking did papers on this fucking text. He might remember something. Oh.
Okay, so this is the eighth Bolgia.
So if you guys start hearing thunder, right? I do apologize. Yes.
Okay, yeah, so this is the eighth Bolgia, at least in what I'm reading here, is, deceivers. So...
And I don't remember her deceiving
makes me
him.
even more... Oh, actually, no, I just realized Ulysses and Diomedes for the horse.
Well, and for their relationship and at all, for that matter. You forgot that part?
Deidamia was one of King Lycomedes' 7 daughters with whom Achilles was concealed. I guess I'm not familiar with exactly what that means.
I don't notice that. I don't remember that reference either. What the fuck?
Yeah, that is... Hold on.
And that wasn't in the section I read this week trying to find out either. Ugh. This is the problem with dissecting old-ass texts, and be glad that we're doing it for you throughout the week instead of you having to do all this shit on your own, because I read at least 6 hours on this shit this week, and I guarantee you would have had to do pretty close to the same. And if you're using this for fucking uni, I guarantee you don't have an extra 6 hours to read with all your other classes.
Yeah, no.
And if you're not using this for uni, what the fuck are you doing here? I mean, thank you for being here, but why? And please leave a comment down below so we could figure out why, and maybe we could like help, like encourage you to be here more.
Oh. Oh, interesting. So there are post-Homeric sources that
Ah,
that he was disguised as a girl living among Lycomedes' daughters.
that's why I didn't find it in Homer. It's post-Homeric.
Yeah. I'm okay. Yes. So basically, he was hiding from the Trojan War. He didn't want to go to war, so he hid.
Well-
At least according to these later sources, he hid among Lycomedes' daughters, and because Didamia was the one who married him while in hiding, she is considered to be the deceiver, at least from Dante's point of view.
I mean, okay, fair enough. If I'm remembering correctly, he was already married, so this would have also been an issue, as well. Not for the Greeks, but definitely for a 14th century Italian. Yeah, polygamy was not looked kindly on in Europe at this time period.
Well, I don't know if he would have been considered polygamous at this point, because that was like Didamia was, I guess, his primary consort in the mythologies.
Well, but if I remember correctly, he was married to somebody back in Ithaca.
The only other consort that's listed here is Briseis, but I'm not.
Yeah, but she's a Trojan. That's different.
Yeah, Greeks capture the queen Briseis. Siege Briseis to Agamemnon. Oh, yeah. So she was apparently his slave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
And for those of you in the movie,
as far as I
yes,
can
Briseis
tell,
was not a little virgin meek priestess in the fucking temple. They fucked that up in the movie. Sorry. Fucking hate. When I saw them call that fucking priestess Briseis, I was like, what? I was literally in the theater and screamed at the screen. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, like as far as like deceit goes, it's either the fact that she hid Achilles, or she aided in hiding Achilles to avoid the war, or that because there's also reference that she may have after the war. Apparently, there are some sources where she's said to have a second son. But yeah, it's not super clear from what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Yeah, the bottom just dropped out of the sky here. Yeah, hopefully the pup doesn't have to go potty anytime soon, because it's supposed to rain till like 3 o'clock. I don't think I'm going to last that long. Oh well. Gonna have to put a pee pad down. Yeah. Okay, so I guess that kind of makes sense, but it doesn't make sense in the traditional sense to me, because to be here for deception, especially when that deception, which I know the term is technically correct to say he was hiding. The more accurate term was he was avoiding, because he wasn't really scared of service. He just didn't want to do it. It was less hiding out of fear and more Big Lebowski. Hey man, like kind of just leave me alone. Because he was press ganged into service, because that's how fucking warlords were pushed into service by kings at that point. What was that?
Yeah, I guess so.
Desperado? I saw your face change for a second, like you were about to say something.
No, it's okay. I'm good.
Okay.
Wasn't going to say anything.
Huh, you just made a face, so I was just checking. Hey, I caught it out of the corner of my eye. I'm working with what I got here. Yeah, see, it just doesn't make sense to me that this would lower her in hell for multiple reasons. One, because deception.
Oh, sorry. I read the Musa translation and it makes it far clearer. She's not here in the eighth bullshit. It is explaining that Odysseus and Diomedes are there for the trick that caused the grief of Didamia. Basically Achilles was killed in the attack, that the
Yeah.
Greeks led via the Trojan horse, and it was this trick that caused the grief of Didamia because Achilles died. That's why she's brought up here. One of the few times where the Musa translation makes it a little bit more clear than Longfellow's more difficult language does.
Yeah, hold on, let me check something real quick. Open with...
Yeah, and Longfellow's use of the word deplore is more difficult than the others who say he weeps or wails, or she weeps or wails for Achilles. So,
Yeah, see, and when I'm looking here, I had to double check to make sure I wasn't misremembering. It says, according to the oracle, the city would not be taken without him, but telling him that, according to the same oracle, he would lose his life there. It literally doesn't talk anything about the disguise in the same way. Like, it talks about the disguise in woman attire, but it does not actually talk about any of the deception, doesn't talk about the marriage, doesn't talk about the being a consort. It is literally just about what she's told about the oracle. Fucking Longfellow.
yeah,
Why
and
all
so
these universities
this led us on quite a goose chase, unfortunately, because she's not actually there. She's being referenced.
Yeah,
But,
and like when you actually look at 315 in the Longfellow notes on the bottom of the page, it literally just says who she is and that she was told the oracle said that he would die. Doesn't say why she's grieving him. Doesn't say that they were lovers. Doesn't say that she is the one that hid him. Doesn't even say that they're fucking married.
Yeah.
Longfellow. And I want to smack Sayers because
so-
her fucking
so
commentary
the-
doesn't help either.
Yeah. So, like, in the previous tercet, he says, and they're within their flame, do they lament the ambush of the horse which made the door, whence issued forth the Romans' gentle seed. So, basically, they are, they're being punished for the horse that led to the Roman Empire being created, or the Roman Republic, I guess. And then he says, therein is wept the craft for which being dead, Deidamia still deplores Achilles. And like, if you read that super carefully, therein is wept the craft, so she is weeping the action that she deplores Achilles because he is dead. That is, so like, but if you're not reading that super fucking carefully,
well, and if
that
you're
is
not,
really hard to pick out.
Well, that, and if you don't know the post-Homeric text that doesn't fucking say this anywhere in the goddamn Iliad.
Well, I mean, does the Iliad at least mention that she's his wife or his consort?
Consort, yeah.
Yeah,
that's my point.
Okay.
But it doesn't mention the extra bits that this was actually used as a form of truly hiding, as opposed to a fun excursion in the story. Yeah, like
I'll
none of that's
be
all that's
right back.
post
That much I don't
Homeric. I'm
think
looking it up.
I'm realizing now that me bringing all that up was entirely pointless. It had nothing to do with this.
No, it may have been. No, it may have been, but we're having to go based on the modern interpretation and understanding. When did they learn that some of this was post-Homeric and start including it? Was this before or after Sayers? Was this before or after Longfellow? Like, all of that would have to come into play when you're talking transliteration like this. And that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It could have been, and therefore, like, the fact that it is including even a reference to something that seems to be post-Homeric, because I reread the section of the Iliad where this happens, and it doesn't say that it's not a matter of deception. It's not a matter of any of that.
Okay,
that's never the focus of the story.
Yeah, so this is written down in a later version of the story, particularly the Achilleid by the Roman poet Statius, or Statius, I'm not sure how to pronounce that one. Which, given Dante's focus on Virgilius, I don't know if he would have included
Well, we don't know if he
information
would
by
have had
other
it.
Roman poets.
We also don't know what he would have had, and that's kind of my point. If this was available in Italy, he probably had access to it. If it was not, obviously he didn't. That's my only point, is I don't know if he was including post-Homeric interpretation of Homer, because he is several hundred years after Homer. There was plenty of post-Homeric text about Homer that he could have included. And it seems to me, based on him putting her in this portion of hell, rather than just the bare text of the Iliad, he would almost have to be including it. It doesn't necessarily mean he would be. He could be using something else, or just his own more, lack of a better term, puritanical view of marriage and sexual relationship. He may have judged it a different way because of that, but at least by the plain wording of the Iliad, she doesn't belong here, or to belong deploring Achilles. According to the Iliad, she fucking loved him still. She didn't hate him. She hated the oracle.
No. She's not deploring Achilles for no reason. She's deploring him because he's dead.
I understand that, but in the Iliad,
this is Longfellow's really weird way of saying she's grieving him.
No, I understand that, but her grief in the Iliad is not hate. Okay, this is getting into psychology, and I do apologize about that, but there's multiple ways that people respond to death. Hate is actually one of them, that you will become so hurt that you hate that individual for leaving you. At least in the original text of the Iliad, that is not how her character is. Her character laments him and hated the oracle, not Achilles. Because if the oracle had never said anything to Achilles, Achilles never would have went to Troy and would not have died. So if she is here because of something that is and being listed as hating that he's dead, it would almost imply to me that it would have to be one of the post-Homeric interpretations, or his own interpretation of the Homeric text, because that's not in the plain reading of Homer, at least not in any of the English translations. Maybe in the Greek, and fucking Rich, wake up, you prick.
So again, this is a poor word choice on the part of Longfellow, or an archaic usage that we simply don't understand, because the word the Italian is Deidamia ancor duol de Achille, meaning Deidamia still grieves for Achilles.
Maybe it was Longfellow's interpretation of it then?
Yeah, the verb duol.
Both of those situations are not mutually exclusive with Longfellow, just so you know.
No, I know. That's the problem is we have to go through the possibilities, because this is one of those things that, outside of somebody going back with their white gloves and examining the original documents, we're only going to have best guesses. And I mean, even of Longfellow.
Duol, being an Copic form of duolo, is grief or despair. So This is just
I was about to say,
Longfellow's
grief doesn't sound accurate with that particular suffix combination, or prefix and suffix. Now, despair sounds more accurate, because of the root.
sorrow. Actually, is
Yeah.
what I'm seeing. Sorry, But
Well,
yeah,
but
this
but
is,
despair,
this is
sorrow, those would be close enough to be synonyms.
yeah. So it comes from the Latin dolor, meaning pain. So
Yeah, I mean,
basically, yeah, feeling pain at someone's death. That is grief.
oh, wait a minute.
Right?
Hold on, let me check my concordant real quick. Maybe this had an older. Open up eSword. Open up my Greek concordant.
Greek.
Original word that they may be interpreting into the Italian. Okay, now check it next to Latin Strongs. Nope. Okay. I was like, well, maybe there was like an antiquated usage in the 14th century. No, I'm not seeing any listed here.
Yeah. Now maybe hold on. Maybe.
Yeah, I tried.
I has an archaic.
Yeah, I just checked.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So. Yeah,
Right.
so deplore has an obsolete usage as to being hopeless or giving up. So it's a little bit. Oh, actually, no. Deplore does also have a meaning of to bewail, to weep, to feel sorrow for. So the verb meaning of like condemnation, disapproval, anger, that's far more common usage today. But back when Longfellow was writing, that deplore could,
see, and this is why we check
exactly
the antiquated. Yeah, this is why we check the antiquated usage of words, and why I check my Latin and my Greek, and you the English, because it's like, wait a minute, hold on, let's make sure that we're not missing something here. Like, wait a minute, did they use this word differently back then? Like, 20 years ago, the word literally had a different meaning than it does today. Fuckers.
Yep.
So,
did it literally have a different meaning?
Yes.
Yes. So to sum up, Deidamia is not being shown as being here in the Eighth Bulgia. He is simply using her as an example of why Odysseus and Diomedes are here, because they, in their deception of the horse to attack the Trojans, ended up in causing Achilles' death, and he is pointing out that ended up causing the despair, the sorrow, the grief of Deidamia at the death of her consort Achilles.
Yeah, and I still think this is an odd reading, and I think it would probably still have to come from semi-post-Homeric text, just because the other thing is this deception, especially in medieval and early Renaissance Europe, was not viewed as a deception in traditional sense. Yes, the Trojan horse is by very definition a deception, but it was a military strategy. They were not lying to people for gain in the traditional way that we view it now with our more modern interpretation of morality. For them, it was for their nation, for their glory, which was considered an appropriate use of things like deception or misdirection or things like this. And Despy can reinforce this. This is true of pretty much any war strategist of these time periods. Deception at home, you're a prick. Deception in war, you're a genius. Sun Tzu is viewed like this very heavily because of it. Because he wasn't a particularly great human, but he was a great war strategist.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately he used his war strategies against normal people in normal conversations, and therefore by his own teachings became a cunt. And that's pretty much true of all these war strategists. They will apply this level of deception within war, and they're a genius. but the rest of society views it as a negative, and it makes me wonder if this is a condemnation on the deception at all of the horse, and that is our more modern interpretation, post 1700s, or if it is the deception of Ulysses to Achilles in reality, because Ulysses lied to Achilles in the story. People forget this. What did Ulysses lie about? That he would keep Patroclus safe.
But wait, sorry,
Yeah.
I don't remember the details enough here. Can you expand on that a bit?
Patroclus was the favored student.
I know who. No,
of,
sorry,
yeah.
I know who Patroclus was. You say favored student, I say gay lover. Regardless, I don't like.
These are not mutually exclusive. These are not mutually exclusive.
But the point that I'm trying to make is I don't understand what lie Odysseus told to Achilles relating also, to Patroclus.
Patroclus was meant to remain behind, not go to war. He was meant to be kept safe. He was not ready for war, but he was ready to travel. And Odysseus promised to keep him safe. Well, Odysseus went to the front lines too. And therefore Patroclus was able to do what he did in the story because Odysseus
Ulysses or Odysseus?
Same difference.
Same person. Yeah, Odysseus, if you change the vowel sound from O to U and the D to an L, same name.
Yeah, it's literally pronunciation of dialectical region.
Yeah.
It's not even a change between
it would
Greek
be more like,
and Roman.
Like Heracles and Hercule. Okay, I get it.
Exactly. it would be more like Odysseus to Ulysses to Ulysses.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just dialectical pronunciation. It's the same person. It's no real difference.
Same name,
and I use them interchangeably depending on how I'm fucking talking about it, because to me the characters are different by the way we pronounce it because of the way these stories have been interpreted through time. When we talk about Odysseus, we are talking about the crafty agent that made it home. The one who eventually made it home to his wife by every manner of trickery and deceit. Ulysses is the honor-bound king who is there for the glory of Greece that has been sullied by the insult of Troy. To me, that makes them two different characters. One is the love-long king who wants to get home to his wife. The other is the military commander who will kill and lie and do anything to get to his end. And when you read the stories of him, they actually read like two different people, even though it is technically the same character. They read like two totally different people. Like decision-making chains, everything is different. So like when I talk about them in my head, I don't know if I started doing it consciously or unconsciously, but I became aware that I talk about them differently depending on the context I'm using it in. Because you can use all three pronunciations. Although if you say Ulysses, most people think Grant at first.
Yeah. I'm far more familiar with the story of the Odyssey than I am of the Iliad, just because I was exposed to it more. So, I think about Odysseus being the main character of his story, and far less so in the story of the Iliad.
Yeah, and there's some fringe scholars who actually believe that they are supposed to be two different characters, or that the particular portions about Ulysses in the Iliad may have been ghostwritten by somebody other than Homer, but they are very, very, very much the minority of scholarship, so take that with the biggest grain of salt you can find.
I mean, I was under the impression that at least some scholarship suggested that Homer didn't exist as a single person, but was rather a pseudonym taken on by multiple. That's a growing
consensus, but it is still the minority. It is a growing consensus. Okay. Yeah, it's one of those things of we think this, but we don't have conclusive proof. It's one of those kind of deals. It's kind of like when we go into, and since we're talking about hell, this juxtaposes in very well. It's like when we talk about the Q source, when we start talking about the Gospels. Same concept.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we can't know for certain, but at least all of the evidence points that way. But considering that is more recent scholarship, it has to overcome a certain barrier before it becomes general consensus, because there have literally been so many authors and so many papers written on it in the other way that it has to break that majority marker to hit true consensus.
Yeah.
It's just basically playing numbers, and if you have never dealt with scholarly consensus, it sounds really complicated. It's not. It's just there's a lot of old dead white motherfuckers who wrote this other thing first, and we have to basically publish enough papers to overcome their bullshit. Like, to put it in the most reductivist, jokey term I can.
Hey, that's
you say reductivist and jokey. It's not entirely inaccurate.
No, it's not inaccurate at all. It's just, but it is very reductivist and jokey.
Yeah.
But getting back to the reading, because I don't want to keep Despy here too late. And he to me, worthy is thy entreaty of much applause, and therefore I accept it. But take heed that thy tongue restrain itself. Leave me to speak, because I have conceived that which thou wishest. For thou might disdain, perchance, since they are Greeks, discourse with thine. When now the flame had come unto the point, whereon to my leader it seemed time and place, and after this fashion did I hear him speak. O ye who are twofold within one fire, if I deserved of you while I was living, if I deserved of you or much or little, of you much or little, when in the world I wrote of lofty verses, do not move on, but one of you declare, withering being lost, he went away to die. Then of the antique flame the greater horn, murmuring, began to wave itself about, even as the flame doth which the wind fatigues. Thereafterward the summit to and fro, moving as if it were the tongue that spake, it uttered forth a voice and said, When I from Circe had departed, who concealed me more than a year there near unto Gaeta, or over yet Aeneas named it so, nor fondness for my son, nor reverence for my old father, nor the due affection which joyous should have been made Penelope, could overcome within me the desire I had to experience of the world, or to be experienced of the world, and of the vice and virtue of mankind. But I put forth on the high open sea with one sole ship and one small company by which I never had deserted been, both of which, both of the shores I saw as far as Spain, as far as Morocco and the Isle of Sardis, and the others which the sea bathes round about. Okay, I'm going to stop there, even though it's technically not the end of that section.
I get the next one right.
Yeah.
I get the next one right.
Yep. And that's why I'm stopping. But it's also, okay, for those of you who do not understand like the actual breadth that he is talking about covering, this is literally the entire of the Mediterranean. He is essentially saying he has sailed from the gates of Gibraltar all the way to the inland of the Aegean. And he mentions the Isle of Sardis. You will know this is the Isle of Sardinia nowadays. This is an island off the coast of Italy. And people call it Italian. It's not. They're Italian in name only.
Well, they're Italian in nationality only, but yeah.
No, because technically they don't consider themselves nationally Italian. They consider themselves Sardinians. That's what I mean. Like, they are Italians as far as it goes, in legal name only. That's it.
That's what I meant.
In passport only.
Actually, I'd have to look it up. They may even have their own passport cover compared to the rest of Italy. They're a different animal in Sardinia. Okay, Despy, when you go to Sardinia, they will still talk to you about bandits in the next town, and it's not a joke. This is an island that kind of still lives like it's the 1800s, but with electricity.
And yes, Sardinia does appear to have their own passport.
Yeah. But this is a place where it is almost unthinkable that if you are a male above the age of 12, you do not walk everywhere with a knife. And we're not talking a whittling knife like the fucking South down here. We're talking about one for fucking battle.
Well, I'm just saying, there are many different kinds of knives you use in the South. I've seen someone whittle with a K-bar before, so
yeah, but when most people when I say this in the United States, they had a knife on their belt, they're thinking a little fucking belt knife. They're thinking what we think of today. No, this thing is a knife that is meant to stab people and animals because they're still, not exactly the infrastructure to handle potential fucking animal attacks like getting gored by fucking deer and shit like that. So this is I've been to Sardinia, and I have talked to people who have been there a lot more than I have. This is the strangest place on earth I have ever visited, and I literally was in Cambodia less than 3 years after the end of the Khmer Rouge. It's like it's very odd, and I don't mean this to sound as a negative, because all of this does sound very negative. Oh, it's a violent place. No, it's just very different. They haven't modernized in the same way that we have, not because of any kind of like negative aspect of their culture. They are a little island in the middle of the Mediterranean that most people forgot fucking existed about 300 years ago. Like, it is an island that, for the most part, literally, even most Italians know nothing about. The only reason I know about it is because I read a travel writer, blurb in a fucking booklet one day, and I was like, how much is a standby flight? And I went. For those of you who don't know what a standby flight is, they don't exist anymore for the most part. That was basically, you'd spend like the absolute bare minimum for a ticket, which at this time was $35. Yes, that's $35 for an international flight from the United States. I just had to wait in the airport for 3 days until a seat opened up on one of the planes that wasn't completely sold out.
And at one point, like, you didn't have to wait in the airport; they would call you.
But even I'm not old enough for that one. That's back when we still had concierge service in fucking airports. I was a little kid when that shit stopped. Like, I remember when I was a little kid, first time I went to Vegas, like, yeah, there was like a concierge stand in the airport that you would go up to. They'd fucking call porters to put the bags over onto the fucking weight, the scales and all that. It was a totally different animal back when I was a little kid.
And like, they still do have standby on flights. You just can't buy into it directly. It's usually because you missed another flight, and so you were put on this one in case someone else missed their, didn't check in for that flight. Then you could be put in their seat.
Yeah, and you can technically still buy...
with the amount of double bookings that they do currently and overbookings that they do, they basically make up for that, and it just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. It's like, technically, you can still buy a standby ticket, but you're not going to be waiting the 3 days I did in the 80s. You're going to be waiting a week or more, and that's if you're lucky.
Yeah.
That's if you're lucky. The last standby
ticket I know... So you have to be very
flexible
flexible on your travel plans.
The The last standby ticket I know somebody who bought that they waited at the fucking airport for 14 days. Imagine trying to spend 14 days at a fucking a hotel or airport hotel, or sleeping on airport chairs. Because that's your two options.
By the way, I was wrong about Sardinia having its own passport. I saw something that I misinterpreted.
Oh, I just figured it was probably still Italian, but maybe had like a different colored cover, because they are very like, if you call a Sardinian an Italian, get prepared to get punched in the mouth.
Or stab.
I don't know if they'd stab a tourist. I don't know about that, but maybe. They may just, punch you in the mouth and call you a stupid tourist. But yeah, like I made the mistake while I was there, and the person I was staying with physically had to hold back my fucking taxi cab driver.
Damn.
Just gonna say, don't do it. If you ever go to Sardinia, call them Sardinians. And don't call them sardines, even as a joke. Sorry. But the reason I bring that up is because, like, the Isle of Sardis is mentioned in many old texts. And if you're taking Dante at university, it is a high likelihood that you're going to come across those texts as well. That's the island that they're talking about. And at this particular time period that they're discussing of Sardis,